Idaho Matters podcast is brought to you by St. Luke's On-Demand Virtual Care, which allows patients to see a provider from their home using a computer or smartphone with on-demand care for common ailments such as a cough, sore throat, or a sinus issue. More information at stlukesonline.org.
We are facing the most serious threat to public media in history. Right now, the White House is trying to rescind already approved funding for the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, money that keeps stations like ours running. Without it, essential local journalism, trusted reporting, and podcasts like this are all at risk. If you value public media, speak up now. Visit boisestatepublicradio.org/funding to learn more and take action.
More Idaho Matters now from the studios of Boise State Public Radio News. I'm Gemma Gaudet. A quick note about our next segment. We will be discussing issues regarding sexual abuse and child pornography. With that said, since April, the Boise School District has received 5 tort claims. All of them, directly or indirectly, involve a former elementary school special education assistant. In total, these claims are seeking more than $100 million in damages. Idaho Education News has been following these developments since January. And after making a public records request earlier this month, the district did release the details of those tort claims. Kevin Richard, who is the senior reporter with Idaho Education News, has been following all of this closely, and he's joining us now to talk more about this. Kevin, appreciate you coming on the show.
Thanks for having me, Gemma.
So, Kevin, I know this is a really difficult topic, but I do want to start at the beginning of this. Can you take us back to January when the Boise Police Department, and they were in partnership with the Boise School District, started investigating some reports of the production of child sexual abuse?
Right, and this leads us back to Gavin Snow. He was a former special education assistant. He worked in 2 Boise schools, Cynthia Mann Elementary School and Valley View Elementary. He died by suicide on January 10th. He took his life as Boise police were trying to arrest him on charges of child sexual abuse. But as you say, since then, the district has received 5 tort claims that stem from Snow's time with these 2 schools.
Kevin, do we know how long Snow worked for the district in this capacity?
I believe it was at least for a couple of years. One of the tort claims references his time at Cynthia Mann being there in 2023. Interestingly enough, another one of the tort claims also references an incident that reportedly occurred at Valley View on January 7th of this year. That is 3 days before Gavin Snow took his life. So at least for a couple of years, but apparently Snow had worked as a paraprofessional even as a teenager at Cynthia Mann.
So, Kevin, even after Snow's death on January 10th, the police did continue this investigation. And they were concerned that there could be more victims. What do we know, if anything, about how many potential victims there could be?
What we know from what Boise School District has said publicly in concert with the results of the Boise police investigation, the district has said that Snow was engaged in, quote, multiple instances of inappropriate behavior with more than one student at Valley View. So we get a sense of the scope of what the investigation from Valley View may have found. But interestingly, too, one of the tort claims comes from a pair of parents at Cynthia Mann who alleged that the Boise district never really investigated Snow's time at Cynthia Mann. The whole of their investigation, according to this tort claim, was all about Valley View and indicated that what happened at Valley View may have been an isolated occurrence. These parents are saying the Boise district failed to look into what may or may not have happened at Cynthia Mann.
So, Kevin, I want to go into what we know about these tort claims. And as I mentioned, Idaho Ed News did file a public records request. You were able to then get these tort claims. And I know there are I know that there are five directly or indirectly, but I want to talk about the ones that are directly related to Snow's time at the school district. So, can we begin with that tort claim that was filed, I believe, on April 10th, and what it is stating happened?
Yeah, so the timing of that is really, I think, rather telling. So on April 8th, you had the Boise District publicly come out and say that there were these multiple instances of inappropriate behavior at Valley View. At this point, again, April 8th, Lisa Roberts, the superintendent of the Boise District, publicly apologizes to parents and staff. So here we are, April 8th, that occurs.
Mm-hmm.
April 9th, the district announces a lot of findings from their independent investigation and a series of policy changes. The next day comes the first of those five tort claims. So April 10th, this is a parent of a Valley View student saying that their child had been it had been found in a bathroom with Gavin Snow on January 7th, again, 3 days before Snow took his life. So that's the first of the five tort claims.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and then there is another one. Is the next one filed then, Kevin, May 13th?
No, I had to do the whole timeline before we
Okay.
came on because there's a lot here, obviously, as you can tell. April 14th was the second of the tort claims, and this is a $50 million tort claim. It comes from two parents of a Valley View student, and they're alleging in the claim that Snow produced a child pornography involving their child, who is not
Mm-hmm.
identified in these tort claims. None of the children are identified in the tort claims.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and we have obviously not identified either the children or the parents, and we've tried to be very careful in terms of uh, concealing the identity
Mm-hmm.
of the alleged victims. So April 14th was the second of the tort claims. Then we get a third on May 13th, um, alleging that Snow used his cell phone to create child pornography. Then you get the May 29th claims, including the one from the Cynthia Mann parents who are alleging that the district failed to look into problems or potential problems with Snow at
Mm-hmm.
Cynthia Mann. And the
So,
fifth
so
and
Kevin, I
final
think,
tort claim
yeah, the
is
fifth and
what's
final,
that?
yes.
The
Yeah,
fifth
the
and
fifth and
final.
final
We're
one.
getting there. The fifth and final of the tort claims. This one is the one that is indirectly related to Snow, but it involves Loretta Bolton, who's a former teacher at the Boise District, a lot of history between the district and Bolton.
Mm-hmm.
She files a tort claim saying that the district had served her with a notice of trespass because Bolton attended a parents' meeting at Valley View involving regarding Gavin Snow. Uh, she says that she attended this meeting on the invitation of one of the parents, uh, and she is saying that the notice of trespass violated her First Amendment rights.
So, Kevin, I want to make it very clear again. Gavin Snow was what I mean, he worked with special education students.
Yes.
I mean, this is disturbing no matter what. But when we also talk about, I think, the type of trust that you must put into the staff, right? When you are dropping off your child, especially if they have special education needs, right?
Yeah.
With
These are
all
the
of that
most
said,
vulnerable kids in our schools.
yeah,
Uh,
right. And so you mentioned that I believe you said April 8th was when the Boise School District all of a sudden made these policy changes. I want to dig into that a little bit. So, because I think this is an important part so that people understand that in before they made these policy changes, these staff members could be alone with children, correct? With these special education children.
Right. So let's kind of walk through a couple of those policy changes.
Okay.
Because you do mention that under one of the changes, the district will now require that two staffers are present when a child is getting help in a bathroom. There's also a policy that addresses cell phones, that staff will no longer be allowed to have cell phones with them when they're helping special education students in a bathroom. I think one of the schools, I think they've set up a box where staff can store their cell phones and lock them away. Uh, these policy changes seem very much in line with some of the allegations that have emerged in the tort claims. But yeah, so those policy changes really came out in April, right before these tort claims began to surface.
Has the district, outside of making those policy changes, outside of an apology, have they made any further comment in regards to this investigation, in regards to these claims being filed?
They've not, as is kind of standard practice with public
Mm-hmm.
agencies, they're commenting on pending litigation. And it's really worth noting, too, that when we're talking about a tort claim, we're not talking about a lawsuit. We're talking about a precursor to a lawsuit. And my understanding now of the procedure is a public entity like the Boise District has, I believe it's 90 days to respond to a tort claim. If they don't, or if there's no agreement, then the issue is ripe for a lawsuit. So none of these cases have yet hit that 90-day mark. And I double checked the online site for court
Mm-hmm.
activity, and I see no evidence that any of these cases have yet gone to lawsuit. And again, I think we're still within that 90-day time frame anyway. So no,
With that,
to get back to your question, no, the district has not said very much of anything about the tort claims directly. They're beyond that apology and beyond those policy changes that they've said very little.
so Kevin, I mean, the likelihood is if this 90 days passes, these will probably turn into lawsuits. If that does happen, we're talking upwards of $100 million of damages that these claims are potentially asking for.
Mhm.
How does that kind of money impact a school district like Boise? Because the likelihood is they are possibly going to have to pay out some big chunks of money from these claims.
Or their insurance carrier would have to come out with
Mm-hmm.
that kind of money. All public agencies have liability insurance, so I suspect that if there are settlements or verdicts against the Boise district, that's where the money would come from. But either way, we're talking about a huge sum of money, uh, a huge amount of claims filed right now against the district.
Mm-hmm. Kevin, I have about 1 minute left with you. From all of the reporting you've been able to gather, what is likely the next step in all of these claims?
I think at this point we're doing probably the same thing that the plaintiffs are doing, who are waiting to see if there's any sort of response from the Boise district as that 90-day deadline approaches. So we'll just kind of keep an eye on it and see what happens in terms of whether any of these cases evolve into lawsuits.
Mm-hmm. Well, it is devastating, Kevin. Appreciate all the reporting that you and everyone at Idaho Ed News has been doing on this. So thanks for making time for us today.
And thanks for giving me a little latitude to talk about it, because this is a sensitive topic. We talk about a lot of topics on this show. This is a tough one to talk about. So I appreciate you having me on to talk through it.
Yeah, I appreciate it too, Kevin. I think it's important to talk about, but again, it is just quite sensitive, as you said. We've been talking with Kevin Richert, senior reporter at Education News, discussing tort claims recently filed against the Boise School District. If you do want to read more, make sure you go to Idaho Ed News website and follow all of Kevin's reporting on it. I'm Gemma Gaudette, and this is Idaho Matters.
Planet Money helps you understand the economy. We find the people at the center of the story.
Garbage in New York, that was like a controlled substance.
We show you how money influences everything.
Tell me what you like by telling me how you spend your money.
And we dig until we get answers.
I had a bad feeling you were going to bring that up.
Planet Money finds out. All you have to do is listen. The Planet Money Podcast from NPR.